Rocky is a great movie where the audience gets to cheer for the underdog. We can learn about determination and heart from Rocky, but there is also a strategic lesson buried in this movie as well about objectives. And it will be objectives that are the focus of episode 2 of Strategy Conduit. Specifically, we'll be looking at 4 key things to consider when you are planning your own objectives. Also note that when I say objectives, I mean it in the broadest way possible. Basically, what it is that you are trying to do. Now, back to Rocky. You may remember that near the end of his fight against the champion, he asks his coach to cut open his eye because it's so swollen he can't see out of it anymore.
I can't see nothing, gotta open my eye. Come here, Mick.
I don't want to do it.
Come on, cut me. Cut me.
Try it. Cut it.
His coach kind of tells him not to do it, but Rocky insists, and sure enough, they cut his eye, and he's able to continue the fight. Although he was able to finish the fight, the cut to his eye damaged his vision. This vision loss was permanent, and it affected him for the remainder of his career, which was shortened because of too many hits to the head. So looking back on it, this decision of Rocky to cut his eye was maybe good in the short term, to maybe give him a better chance of winning that fight, but in the long term, it costed him dearly. So to put it in another way, if having a long, successful boxing career was Rocky's long-term objective, and this championship fight was his short-term objective, his long-term objective was compromised when he tried too hard to achieve the short-term objective of winning this particular fight. Now here's a silly question. Why do we bother to have objectives in the first place? Well, if you ask any gamer, they'll tell you that with every objective comes some kind of reward at the end. Or to put it more broadly, we try to achieve our objectives because we're trying to earn some kind of good outcome. Now that may seem very basic, but here's an example of a company that didn't recognize this and ended up in disaster. For a period of time, Enron's share price just kept going up and up and up, and it made many people wonder, how is this even possible? Well, it turns out it's not really possible, at least not legally. Long story short, instead of trying to run a successful, proper business, which has many very good outcomes, such as happy employees, satisfied customers, and yes, profit, they went ahead and tried to jump over their objective straight to their reward. And so what that did was it made it impossible to achieve the other good outcomes, the happy employees, the satisfied customers. And ultimately, because Enron was not built around a solid objective, the profits dried up as well, and they went belly up. Now, moving on to war, objectives play a huge role in directing vast armies to either victory or defeat. In World War I, for example, the German army was invading France, and the only thing that stood between it and the capital Paris was a stronghold called Verdun. Falkenhayn was in charge of this initiative and gave his orders.
Falkenhayn's directive to the staff of the German Fifth Army spoke only of an offensive in the direction of Verdun. There was no mention of capturing the city.
These orders were to be disseminated down the chain of command all the way down to the troops on the front line. However, because this objective was so different from the usual objective of taking territory, the orders were miscommunicated to the troops on the front line.
The objective is to capture the fortress of Verdun by precipitate methods.
After a long and bloody standoff, the Germans were pushed back, and eventually they lost the war. This goes to show that even if you completely understand your objective, it's critically important that you communicate it effectively with those around you. As a final example, I'd like to use the movie Click with Adam Sandler. For those of you that have not seen it, it's about a hardworking guy that wants to get ahead to make his family happy, and he's able to fast forward time with the use of a magical remote control. And while the extra salary makes him and his family happy for a little while, his life is so focused on his career that eventually he loses his health, his looks, and even his family. And although he was rich in material goods, he ended up dying full of regret. Looking carefully, the main character did have a good, solid objective of trying to be a good family man. However, the path that he chose to try to get there was not the best one. This just goes to show that even if you do have a really good objective, you could still screw it up. To summarize, there are 4 key takeaways from this episode. The first is not to allow the pursuit of a short-term objective to prevent you from reaching your long-term objective. The second is to tell the difference between your objective and your outcome, and not just to chase your reward. The third is that if you're working as part of a team, to clearly communicate your objectives with everyone. And the fourth is that even if you have a very good objective in your sights, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be successful in achieving it. It will be the aim of future episodes to ensure that you have a solid strategy to reach your objective. Thanks for watching, and check in later for more episodes.